All right. Hello, hello. All right, so Max says, not gonna make the stream, just want to throw in a pairing, Stussy plus Sanji and Luffy and Zoro plus Lucci and Kaku make me think that Stussy lied to sneak CP0 in. Nah, I don't think so. I don't buy it. Don't buy it. All right. Um, yeah. I mean, interesting chapter. Hold on, let me pull it up because I read the shitty version. I'm kind of short on time. Um, okay, so heads up, this stream is gonna be short. You guys deserve to know that from the get-go. It's gonna be relatively short, not crazy short, but yeah, I gotta go after this basically. So it's not gonna be the longest stream in the world. So, you know, you know. All right. We've got. Okay. Let me just give it a quick skim to make sure that there's no crazy changes between what I read versus what I'm seeing now. 1 second. Irving says first live stream excited for the crazy theories. 20 minutes late or 20 minutes early? Yeah, I moved things around basically because what do you call? Um, I thought I was gonna. I'm probably gonna. It doesn't matter. You guys don't need to know what's up. But yeah, I think doing the stream earlier and then leaving a little early is smarter than the other way around. Pac-Man Lover 123 says, doesn't he work in digital marketing? I think he might be gaslighting us with bad tech knowledge. I don't do. I mean, like, I can learn stuff when I'm supposed to learn like a singular thing, like Google Ads. But in general, I don't manually do that sort of thing myself. So that's not my role. And really, what we do is we help digital marketers, not doing the digital marketing ourselves. Does that make sense? But I do have past experience having done digital marketing, and that's what we were originally. All right. So, this was I mean, we're still in the phase of basically setup chapters, but the thing that's really big is obviously who's the traitor. The traitor is such a tricky thing because it's just like. Every arc now has got some traitor, right? We've all got traitors. I mean, okay, Bobby Wellington is asking who's the traitor, right? So that's the question of the day. Oh, it's low volume? How low volume is it? No, it's not low volume. Melody Cake says he read OP scans. It doesn't matter what I like. I'm gonna read. If I feel like reading the thing earlier, I'll read the thing earlier. But I only support TCB. Does that make sense? At least for the moment. So I'm only gonna do the streams with TCB chapters and stuff in mind once TCB has done their stuff. I will say the cast of characters that we have now is fucking. It's too much. It's fucking crazy. There's too many. There's so many. Like the panel with everybody together, everybody doing their zany, quirky stuff. It's a lot right now. It's a lot. Please let's find out that all of these Vegapunks are traitors so that we can kick some of them out. I mean, at the moment, okay, like the basic guess is that one of the traitors, because it's not a Straw Hat, right? I feel like it's not Stussy. I feel like if it's Stussy, that's too much of a quick like turnaround, right? It's like, oh, we found out she's a traitor for them, she's a traitor against CP0, and then we find out that she's a traitor the other way around. It's kind of just weird. I wouldn't put it past Oda to do something like that, but I mean, it would be unexpected just because we did just get a Stussy twist. So let's say it's not Stussy. I don't think Bonnie's in a position to be able to do anything like that. So it's got to be a Vegapunk, right? And if it's a Vegapunk, I mean, the obvious guess, the straightforward guess without putting too much thought into it is that, oh, it's Lilith, right? It's Lilith. Why? Because Lilith is the evil one, right? She's supposed to be evil. So, yeah. Okay, the Kuma flashback's important. Let me just make sure that it's basically the same thing, right? Because I couldn't fully understand. Dude, Kuma's story is gonna be so good when it's all said and done. It's gonna be so good. Isaiah JD says it's basically Zoe. No? How's it basically Zoe? Why is it Zoe? ZZ says was Westbrook gone from the Lakers? Oh, come on. We're not calling him Westbrook still. Leave him alone. Jordan Taylor says it's probably Conjuro. The thing is, okay, so let's say it's not Lilith, right? Let's say it's not Lilith. If it's not Lilith, it's just... There's only 2 Vegapunks that have really mattered so far, and that's Shaka and Lilith. I think the others haven't really had enough focus or personality for us to really care if it's any of those, right? It's just... Jacob Tomlin says Lilith would be too obvious because she's supposed to be the evil emotions. Yeah, but like in the same way, Yusuf Al says Shaka, he's logic, not good. I mean, it's I've read the definition both ways, so I wouldn't go so so far as to say Shaka's not good, right? But yeah, I don't know. With Lilith, it's just like she's too obvious almost. But at the same time, it's like any other Vegapunk would be too boring, right? Any other Vegapunk would be too boring because it would kind of just, it's like, oh, it's Edison. Wow, we knew that character so well. He was such a distinct personality. I just feel like some of the Vegapunks really blend together. Atlas could be interesting, I suppose. Khalid Suleiman, thoughts on this crazy trade deadline? The tricky thing is that I'm less invested in the NBA these days. So if this was me a couple years ago, I would be going crazy over this trade deadline. Right now, I'm just sad because I feel like KD's going to win another championship. I don't want him to win another championship. I do look forward to this for the Lakers, but it's so hard to believe in the Lakers now because they're so far back. If they were built like this from the beginning of the season, I'd be hyped. But right now, I'm just like, do they even make the play-ins? I don't know. It's hard. Manifest Joe says there's no traitor. Frankie Frankie just keeps pushing buttons in Vegapunk's labs. That would be funny. Rancher Dog 2000, welcome to the Supernova. Thanks for joining. Yeah, who has main traitor is Virgo. Cushion thinks it's Virgo. Cushion, you gotta check Slack. There's more important things for you to be doing right now than watching this stream. Grand Line Reviews made jokes that it's Caribou screwing around. Maybe. I don't think that, the way it's being built up, it seems like it is something significant, not just like a random character or something like that. Guys, can we get the stream likes to 100? Let's get the stream likes to 100. Let's get it there. If the trader's York, wow, that'd be crazy. I mean, basically, there's only 3 Vegapunks that we kind of know well. Shaka, Atlas, Lilith, right? Not counting the main body. 3 Vegapunks that we know well. So it's like, okay, if it's somebody else, how much do we really care? Cushion says I did respond on Slack, LMAO. Okay, I didn't look. I was just saying that. Sorry. Keenan, thanks for hopping in. York is bad, but it's sickening to know that every time she looks good, it's right after she blew up the bathroom. Yeah, it's 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 just it's One Piece, it's Oda style. I love the fact my favorite little part of this chapter? It's ignoring the Kuma part, I'm actually very excited for the full Kuma flashback. I think for the Kuma flashback, I'm gonna really try to avoid, because it's been some time. Okay, let me finish my thought, right? Favorite part of this chapter was the Kuma flashback. Second favorite part of the chapter is Wapple's return. Not Vivi's return, Wapple's return. Because it's like, I expect Vivi to make a reappearance at some point in the story, right? Why is Wapple still here? Why is he still this? Why is he here? What's he doing here? What's the purpose of him? It's just for comic relief? Anime Dimension says part 1, I believe Shaka is traitor. The reason is Shaka being the traitor would be very interesting. He's also been the most cryptic of the Vegapunks by far. Even from the very get-go, his first introduction. The reason is, when the Straw Hats first wore new clothes given by the satellites, where everyone is Dom shoes, then Shaka restricted the Straw Hats' movements. I don't think that's a good enough reason just yet, but that's an interesting point. Anime Dimension, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 3 months. Continuing on with part 2. In chapter 1065, page 17, currently everyone has Dom shoes, including Zoro and Stussy. Only Luffy's shoe is broken. I smell something fishy here. That's interesting. So you think that basically he's setting up so that he could control the... You know, let's not forget. Let's not forget old Morj had a theory on this. It's called why Vegapunk could be the villain of Egghead Island. I think that's what the theory was. Just Lol says, what are you politically? That is the type of question. Stop. Leave me alone. Leave me be. That's, what the fuck? Alright. Leave me alone. I think at the very least, you know, Vegapunk, like, at this point we know that one of the Vegapunk bodies is up to no good, right? I put this theory out there a while ago that Vegapunk could be a problem in the Egghead Island arc. He's by far the most powerful character in this domain in terms of what he can do. And, you know, it's just a little bit suspicious, a lot of aspects of him. So if Shaka's up to no good, I don't know. Everybody said it made no sense. But, you know. My second thought was, I was finishing up the Wapple thought. My favorite part of this chapter is obviously the Kuma stuff. I think when the Kuma stuff is going to really start, right? When the Kuma stuff is really going to start, I'm going to try harder than ever to avoid spoilers, to avoid reading early versions of the chapters, etc. Because I think it's been quite some time since a One Piece backstory really made me feel something, you know? To be fair, we haven't had any crazy backstories recently. I mean, I think in Wano, the most important backstory was the Oden backstory, right? But the Oden backstory wasn't as much, it wasn't like a tearjerker backstory necessarily. It was more of a, damn, Oden's such a sacrificial, noble person, right? It was mainly the last couple chapters of the backstory that really wowed you, but it wasn't as much of a, you know, tragic child losing their parents sort of a backstory like we're used to in One Piece, right? You know, tortured childhood, traumatic stuff like that, right? Oden was kind of the guy that could take it all, and that was the appeal of his backstory. So Oden's backstory, I really liked the way it ended. Not trying to knock Oden's backstory. It's Oden's final moments are some of my favorite moments in post-time skip One Piece in general. I think they're really cool, okay? But the other backstories we had were kind of, you know, pretty short, right? Yamato's backstory, nothing to really write home about, right? Momonosuke, who I thought we would get more out of his traumatic incident at the palace, but if you combine all of the panels of Momonosuke's sections of his flashbacks and stuff, it makes about a few pages at best. So I'm really hoping on the Kuma backstory being one of those, you know, all-time great classic One Piece backstories. I'd say Whole Cake Island was the last time we really delved into something like that for Sanji, and I thought Sanji's backstory in Whole Cake was sad. I don't put it as one of my favorite backstories in One Piece. So I'm hoping for something really, really good out of the Kuma one. I already have a really good feeling about it from so far. The way it's gone so far. Shuki says, hey Morj, it's Shuki. I hope you're doing well, 420. Kit Spicken says, you also oversold how long and involved it might be. Yeah, maybe, but it's kind of... The Kuma backstory, I don't know. I feel like the Kuma backstory is kind of just... It's been built up for forever, you know what I mean? It's been built up for ages and ages and ages, that this man has a particularly tragic history, right? Kuma is, at this moment, the most interesting man in One Piece in terms of everything, like, what really went down with this character in his past. So, I feel that Kuma's backstory is one of those particularly important ones, and even just the way that Oda's kind of teasing it so far, with us getting glimpses of it, kind of starting it, stopping it, stuff like that, I feel like the bulk of his backstory is going to be pretty good. And, you know, the last time we had a backstory that was built up to for a long time, it was Oden's backstory, and we got a good section of time devoted to it. I don't think Kuma's is going to be as long as Oden's by any means, but I think that it's going to be, I don't know, maybe like, I don't know, 10 chapters? No, 10's a lot. 5 chapters. I'm not high right now. Leave me alone. Alright, guys. Let's get the stream likes to 200. That's the next goal. Kuma deserves at least a 3 chapter backstory. I would agree. A 3 chapter backstory. I think. I think at least. Joe Mama says it'll be like 8. I think that's the upper end. I think it'll be somewhere between 3 and 8. I think that seems about right. Do we have any other good theories besides Shaka? I've got nothing on the theory train here. I like Shaka as the option. I think that's the most interesting option I can think of. Lilith is the most obvious option. Then once you're past Shaka and Lilith, it kind of just goes down the train of like, who cares, who cares, who cares. Oh no, the traitor was Atlas. We were so attached to Atlas. I mean, it's not like we're super attached to Shaka and Lilith, but at least they've had interesting sides to their personality that we've kind of been exploring, right? Keenan, thanks. I love how expensive yet simplistic Devil Fruits are as a system. All Law has to say is run for it, he's a super weight man, and even a moron like Luffy will know exactly what Mach Beast's power is. Yeah, because Devil Fruits, they take one very basic concept, it's just one concept, and then stretch it in a bunch of different ways. Shuki says, I'm just joking, brother. My roommate and I love you. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it does seem like Kuma's race is basically going to be something significant at this point, right? Young Dokas' thoughts on the KD trade. I mean, I think that the Suns are now the favorites to win the championship. Because the Suns were already championship contender caliber, just about. I mean, we saw it, right? They were basically they almost won a championship a couple years ago, right? 6 games. They were in there, right? Considered the best team in the West last year till they got beat up by Luka. They're like a championship contender. They're that championship contender team that needs that X factor, and KD's like more than an X factor. He's like I don't know, X squared or some shit, right? So I think I don't know. I think the Suns are the favorites. I hope KD doesn't win. I mean, yeah, I just hope KD doesn't win. Khaled Suleiman says, I super chatted about the KD trade and got 0 commentary. There's your commentary. You got it. You got it right there. My bad. Else is KD joining super teams? Here's the thing. Quick note, and then we talk about One Piece continually, right? People are like, LeBron joins super teams, KD joins super... you know, like, it's just... there's a difference, in my opinion, between what KD does and LeBron does, which is, like... I think there's a sharp difference between joining a team that's already really, really good versus LeBron trying to assemble teams. Because when you try to assemble teams, there's no guarantee that they're going to be good, no matter what you're doing. So, I mean, the classic example is obviously LeBron and the Heat, but also just like, look, KD and the Nets, right? In theory, KD had, he's like, okay, we're going to assemble Harden and Kyrie, and it's just this crazy super team. But the reality is that, like, when you're putting all these pieces together, there's chemistry issues, there's just issues that come with it that make it not guaranteed that it's going to be good, right? You're starting something new. Versus if you have something that's already really good, right, like the Warriors, and then you just add a really good piece to it, that's much more guaranteed to be great than starting something from scratch, right? So to me, that's a difference, which is that, you know, LeBron went to the Lakers, and yeah, he assembled good pieces there, kinda, at least initially, like Anthony Davis and then some good pieces. He fucked it up later. But, you know, it's like, well, he's got AD and stuff, and it's like, yes, but he's still got to do it from scratch. He's not jumping on board something that's already really good. KD jumps on board things that are already really, really good, which I think is just, I personally view that as very different, and I view that as much more, I don't respect that, you know? Because that's just more, that's something like you almost can't fuck it up unless you're the one that really fucks everything up, you know what I mean? Like, the Suns were already really, really good, like, first in the West last year, right? In the finals the year before. Elle says, you think Kuma's going to have the saddest backstory? I think he's got a really good one around the corner, in my opinion. Saddest is hard just because One Piece sets such a high bar for sad backstories, you know? Like, is it going to be my favorite? I don't know. The one thing I wish I wasn't, like, a One Piece content creator for a minute, just because I like reading backstories, especially tragic backstories, all in one row. Like, binge reading them, because that gives more, you know, emotional impact and everything like that. I don't get to do that this time, right? So with this. Got to commentate on it the whole way through, but that's okay. JK Kane says, "Who's your One Piece NBA starting five?" That doesn't really mean. I don't understand that question. What does that mean? One Piece NBA starting five? Don't know what that means. Mr. Crescent says, "Loving this arc. I really miss not knowing where the story was heading and all the Stride interactions. What do you want to see most out of this arc?" Honestly, I don't have like crazy. Like, I think that this arc has already outperformed what I expected of it. I thought that it was going to be fairly tame. So what I want to see the most at this point, I guess, would just be some good fights and a good backstory out of Kuma. That's all I ask for. I'm not looking for any crazy twists or anything like that, even though it seems like Oda's going to try and throw some in. I think he's already had some great twists with Stussy and everything like that. Yeah. Khalid Suleiman is not as bad as Golden State. Yeah, like, but it's sad that that's kind of the standard we have to compare to. It's like, well, what Katie just did is, I mean, what he joined just now, it's pretty crazy and pretty broken, but it's not as bad as that other thing he did, which was historically like the best team ever created and the most broken team ever created. So it's like the standards, he broke the standards so much that now we view it as like, well, it's not as bad as that other thing he did. Although I guess it's not his fault that he had to get traded there, you know? Did he like ask for it? Who knows? Nah, Katie been asking to get traded to the Suns. Yeah, realistically, probably. Manifest Joe says, "Guesses for unexpected cameos in Kuma's backstory." I mean, Dragon's a good shot, right? Do we know Dragon's age compared to Kuma's age? It's hard to say. Katie asks, that was his preferred destination. Alright, never mind. Stand corrected. Yeah, I guess, Dragon is a good expectation. Because Celestial Dragons seem to be involved, wouldn't it be cool if we saw, like, Doflamingo in some way? Probably not. Doflamingo's family probably got shipped off by that point to the downstairs world. Yeah, I don't know. I think Doflamingo is a possibility, or at least someone related to Doflamingo. Who else? It's interesting because Doflamingo and Kuma were introduced together. So wouldn't it be cool if we see them in a flashback all the way back then together, coming from the same sort of history? Imagine them going all the way back, but Doflamingo was a Celestial Dragon and Kuma was bullied by the Celestial Dragons. Who else? I mean, depending how far in his life we get, maybe Bonnie. Maybe we see a Gorosei member. Maybe we see Im, if we're really lucky. A Gorosei member, I think, is the most interesting shot we got. Nicholas Sealstern says, "You explain how East Blue parallels the New World. The first two enemies Luffy took down in that order were a pirate and a marine in that order. What does it mean for story if Luffy did it the same way?" I do think that Akainu is an important final opponent for Luffy. Yeah, I do think Akainu is an important final opponent for Luffy. I just don't know if that sort of, like, if it matters that specifically that, you know, Luffy beat a pirate then a marine, you know? But I do think Luffy versus Akainu is an important matchup down the line. Synesthesia says, "Morj, you need to paint your door and background, fam." I'm in the middle of deciding whether or not I'm moving. That's the thing. Because I thought I was locked in to move in March. And then I realized I was looking more into the place. I have the lease basically ready to be signed. I'm looking more at the place. I'm like, do I really want to do this? Because I'm comfortable with where I'm at. The price is about the same. The other place is like slightly better, but it's a hassle. And there's a few things that are drawbacks. So I'm just like, is it worth the pain? Is it worth the hassle of moving? I don't know, man. I might just not do it. So if that's the case, then I will decorate this background a bit more. Eve Warabel says, "Katie just went to the Suns to build tension." I mean, is there tension? They're just going to win. That's not true. I don't think Katie to the Suns is so broken that they're just guaranteed to win. It's not the same. Rodolfo Orellana, thank you for joining the Yonko. Welcome. Wrench Dodger 2000 says, "Is this what bullying is to you, Mork?" Okay, bullying, it's probably much more okay. What they were doing to Kuma is obviously a lot more extreme than bullying. Yeah, the Lakers are looking good, but they're in fucking 13th place. It's like they've got to put in so much work just to get into the contention, right? I don't know if I move just because it's like, what do I get out of it? Slightly better place, but you gotta reset everything, you know? Sasjahin says, really enjoyed the manga Morj videos. What other series do you want to make videos on in the future? There'll be a JoJo's video out basically as soon as the first chapter of part 9 comes out. As soon as the first chapter of part 9 comes out, I think that's when the goal is to drop a JoJo's video right then. You guys are making fun of Ja. Yeah, Ja's been easy to make fun of lately. No, I think D'Lo's gonna be good for the Lakers. Strat Shaka says, Morj, how do you think Kuma ends up becoming king? That's a really good question. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense, does it? Which means he's got a really interesting story in store for us, right? Angel Rise says Shaka is most like the traitor. He's the one monitoring the cameras and saying he'll whatever the dome. He watched Pythagoras get exploded and said nothing. Shaka being the traitor, I think, yeah, that's just the most interesting option, right? Because Shaka is the most important of the Vegapunk bodies. Most important of the Vegapunk bodies. He's supposed to stand for logic or good. I've seen both those things thrown around, different translations. He stands for logic or good. I don't know. I don't understand Japanese enough to understand why those two things would ever be considered interchangeable. But logic and good, right? And he's been saying cryptic stuff from the beginning, like, I think my end is around the corner or something like that. So it's like, okay, don't know what he's got in mind, but, he's always been the doomer one of the bunch. Joyboy's asking, did I ever read a manga called Fire Punch? I have to read Fire Punch, too. I've not read Fire Punch. Joe Mama says, does Morj's Hunter x Hunter video have Chimera spoilers? Yes, because it's on... Well, no, technically not. I think maybe like a line or two. But for the most part, it's entirely about Succession War. Shaka removes his mask, reveals he's Ace. Wrench Dodger 2000 suggested that Kuma became a tyrant because he sacrificed his positive emotions to Vegapunk. That's why Bonnie has such fond memories of him, but people that meet him later don't. I always chalk that up to just basically the natural way that characters' reputations and such get twisted around, right? Because Sabo and them also view, like they specifically said during the reverie, that Kuma is such a kind, gentle-hearted person. So, yeah, I don't think that's the case. I mean, and he worked with Dragon for so long. He must have been a good guy during that period of time. Gecko Moria Daimyo Fuano asked, what's Morj's favorite color? My favorite color is blue. I like blue. It's my favorite color. Have I heard the theory that it's actually Lafitte and Shiryu on Egghead? No. Lafitte and Shiryu. I mean, they're both very stealthy characters, right? I'm still waiting for a chapter where someone's just revealed to be Katarina Devon, right? That'll happen at some point. How do you guys feel about so many Vegapunks running around? I'm hoping that it's just for the sake of the mystery plotline that we got right now. I don't want all these Vegapunks staying. Tired of them. Tired of them. When I saw that panel in this chapter of all the Vegapunks just being noisy and shit, and the Straw Hats just being noisy and shit, I was just like, how did we get back here? We just got out of Wano. We just left this shit. We were back to just the Straw Hats. Just the Straw Hats, this one Vegapunk body, Bonnie. We'll take Stussy too, great. And now it's just like, no, everybody's here. They all want a piece of the dialogue. They all want to take up some panel space, some panel time. Christian Barraza says Katie went to the Suns despite Charles Barkley, lol. I mean, yeah, if Katie wins for the Suns, then that'd pretty much that'd teach Barkley quite a lesson for sure. Warning, don't read Fire Punch, it's nonsensical. Okay, I've heard different things, but most people say it's pretty cool. I've heard that it doesn't wrap up that well, so I'll take that in mind. There's a reason, there's got to be a reason Shaka is masked. Yeah, maybe. It'd be cool to see if there's some big reveal around the corner with that. The more that you guys have talked about it, the more I lean towards, yeah, Shaka's at least the most interesting character that could be a traitor. And it's interesting enough that now I don't want any other character to be the traitor. I just want it to be Shaka, because that's the only truly interesting development. Otherwise, it's just like, oh, it was this other random Vegapunk body. It's like, cool. What do we do with that information? What does that? Why does that mean anything? This Reflexy. Please talk about Vivi. Does she know about her dad's death? I mean, it said that she's been crying. Nami was worried of how she took the news. Plus, please read my Patreon message later. Okay, I'll check that out. Thank you for reminding me. Let me take a look. I do think that Vivi should know that her dad is dead, right? Because she's been said that she's been crying. Yeah, big talk for a girl who was bawling her eyes out yesterday. Yeah, I think that Vivi's she's definitely in the wake of her father's death, right? That's what she's experiencing right now. She's in mourning. Nicholas Sealstern says, this is an old question I asked, but what do you think S-Hawk's devil fruit is? I think it's the dice fruit, Mr. One's fruit. People said no and that it's boring. That's a good question. I saw some people say that it might be Law's fruit because when he was trying to attack, a sort of target symbol came up that we've kind of seen associated with one of Law's, I think, injection shot ability. But that could also just be because he's got pacifista stuff. Like he's also, he's also like he's not a robot. He's a clone. I don't know. It's just, maybe it's just the, whatever his programming is or whatever, however the fuck it works, right? So I wouldn't read too much into that. I do think that, best, like the coolest thing that it could be would be Law's fruit. If it's Law's fruit, then that would be pretty big deal. It would also probably make everyone shut up about Law somehow being stronger than Zoro, because I think we can all agree that if Mihawk had Law's fruit, it would be a much bigger deal than Law having Law's fruit, right? And Zoro would be stronger than this Mihawk clone, therefore Zoro significantly stronger than Law, yada yada yada, right? I think Law's fruit would be cool. The dice fruit, I agree, would be kind of boring, because the dice fruit, there's no purpose to it if you're already a really good swordsman, right? Because all it does is turn your body into a blade. Mihawk doesn't need, like, what's the difference between if his arm was a blade versus he's just holding a sword? Isn't it the same thing? It's Caribou. Caribou being a traitor wouldn't be like a traitor, you know? It's just like a dude that we already thought was kind of bad. We thought he was good for a little bit, but oh, he's just back to being bad, you know? Attilio says, hey Morj, got any advice on getting a girl's attention, parentheses, community college, because that's like an important part of this equation. Okay, so my question to you would be, what's the context? So he's just asking on how to get her attention. So it's not even like how to, how to progress things or anything like that, or ask her out or whatever. It's how do you even get her attention? So my question to you is, I'm just going to assume that she's a girl in your class, right? I need some more details. Like, do you sit near her? Have you talked to her? Or are you just sitting there fantasizing about her? Those are three very different things. L, thanks for joining the Supernova. Brandon King says, S-Hawk has the ton fruit, super heavy slashes. Aw, man. Please don't let him have a lame-ass fruit like that. I mean, it makes sense in theory that it would be cool for Mihawk to have the ton fruit, but it's just like, come on. It's just the fruit that Machvi's had, which just makes it lame in my mind. You know what I mean? Mr. Crescent says, Sasha Nova says it could be the diamond fruit. That could be cool. Mr. Crescent says, I feel like only the main Stella and maybe Lilith will escape with the Straw Hats while the others fight off the traitor in the world government, or at least I hope. That would be cool. The interesting thing, though, is that those are parts of Vegapunk's personality. So if those are gone, then that means in theory that he loses those parts of his personality forever. So these Vegapunk bodies, in theory, they're not that expendable, right? They should matter for something. Kid Spikin says he doesn't have the medical know-how. Who cares? His slashes would be way, way more powerful. Austin Sims says, Morj on time, what the fuck is happening? Not only was I on time, I was early. 30 minutes early. Anime Dimension says, have you seen Detective Conan? There are more than 1,000 chapters, but all you need to read around 200 chapters total, and movies are pretty good every year. Almost one movie releases. If interested, let me know. So here's the thing about Detective Conan. I was actually initially for a long time, I thought about starting Detective Conan. It's always been a series that I've kind of looked at and thought maybe I would really like it. I think because I like detective stuff. I like mystery stuff. The tricky thing is just that, how do I say this? With Detective Conan, I don't like the basic premise of he gets transformed into a kid. Why is that important to the story? Right? I just don't get it. Why can't he just be it just seems like an unnecessary, I mean, I haven't read the series, but it just seems like an unnecessary twist on it when I would just be down for a series of like a normal dude just solving a bunch of mysteries. You know what I mean? Like, why does it have to be a, you know, why does it have to be like that? Right? I don't know. I feel like it's just can someone explain to me? I'm looking for someone to explain. Can someone explain the Detective Conan situation? Elle says, which manga are you reading besides One Piece right now? Which manga am I reading besides One Piece right now? Which manga am I reading besides One Piece right now? Is the correct answer none? Is it just none? No. Okay, I'm like weekly. I'm only reading Chainsaw Man still. Although I didn't read the latest chapter. And then besides that, you know, I read Hunter x Hunter when it comes out. I'm gonna read JoJo's when it comes out. But I still have to catch up on a lot of things. Got to catch up on Jujutsu. Kingdom is the next one that I'm supposed to binge. You know. Wait a second. Guys, everyone stop. Attilio's already, he's already progressed. Why'd you ask how to get her attention when you've already, okay, so ask this. She gave him her number. How do you progress from there? Wait, guys, hold on. There's hope for, there's hope for all of you. Because he brought up One Piece and it worked as a segue into other anime that she's watching. Wow, good for Attilio. My opinion is never bring up One Piece until you're certain that things have moved along a little bit. But until you went the opposite direction, and that worked. So she gave him her number. How does he progress from there? I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward. Just have natural conversations, and then just ask her out. That's pretty much it. Because you don't want to wait too long, otherwise she's not going to think of you that way. That's pretty much it. Like, don't... How do I say this? Don't just, like, I don't know if you've messaged her or anything already, but don't just jump into asking her, right? Have a bit of a back and forth, but make sure that segues into asking her to something that's clearly a date. You get what I'm saying? Hawkins says, what's your overall thoughts on JoJo's Part 8? Disappointing, but my second favorite part at the end of the day. In terms of what I felt it was shaping up to be, or how good it felt like it was becoming versus how it stuck/didn't stick the second half. I have very mixed feelings on Part 8. I really enjoyed a lot of it. It's just the way it all came together was kind of like it barely came together. You know what I'm saying? Highlight I'd say is the final villain stand, though. I think that was the best part of Part 8, in my opinion. Mark Ross says, have you ever read Medaka Box? Have I ever read Medaka Box? No. Wrench Doctor 2000 says, with good advice, don't be needy, but also don't wait forever. Yeah. Find something interesting for y'all to do together. The one thing I'll say is that the good news is that this is a girl in your class, and it's community college, which means that it's as I understand, you don't stay there or anything like that, right? So, you know, there's very little on the line for you at all because it's a girl in your class, right? If you ask her out, she's not interested. You don't have to see this person really again, right? After this semester period, and you don't even have to see her much in class. Just sit on the other side of the classroom. I guess, you know, it's so there's so little at stake here. Anyway, continuing what Wrench Dodger said, don't just take her to dinner unless you know a good ass spot. I mean, I just don't think dinner's not a good first date ever. It's too formal. AZ fan says, I don't think there will be a king of the world by series end. I mean, I agree. It's working towards. I mean, Luffy's going to be Pirate King, which equates to King of the Seas, which equates to Freest Man, which equates to nobody is being ruled, so there's no king. But I think Kuma may feel a similar position. It would be a cathartic end for a story, or maybe it will also end in tragedy as well. I feel like the most important figure by the end of the story in terms of the political realm of One Piece would be Vivi. I just don't think we're going to have a king sort of situation. I think it's going to be closer to what the world government is supposed to be, which is, you know, a round table of different leaders. Lucky Man says, hey Morj, here's a super for you to look up. Reg Jean Page. He's the most handsome man in the world. Why do I have to look up the... Alright, I'll do that on my own time. Anime Dimension says, unless the people want to see it. Anime Dimension says, in series, his adult identity is secret villains think he is dead and not considered threat. He solves every case. Okay. His adult identity is secret villains think he is dead and not considered a threat. He solves every case, and since he is a kid, it's easy to hide. Follow the series for some time, it'll be interesting. Is there like an overarching plot, or is it just mystery after mystery? But wouldn't it just be easier if it's just, like, why can't I just follow like a Sherlock Holmes, like, normal type story? Why does it got to be like following like a kid? Because I feel like because he's a kid, he uses a yo-yo. Am I crazy about that? The people want to see? Okay, let's look up this person. Reg Jean Page. Alright. You guys ready? This is the most handsome person in the world. This is it. This person. Alright, we good? Anime Dimension says... Oh no, we covered this. Shuki says, hey Morj, do you think there is a Rocks clone alive? Captain Longlegs says, okay, do I think there's a Rocks clone alive? Sorry, I don't know why I was skimming through that one. Do I think there's a Rocks clone alive? My hope is no. My hope is just no. I mean, something interesting would be if, like, Blackbeard turns out to be a Rocks clone or something, I suppose. Or, like, Kid turns out to be a Rocks clone. Dude, if Kid turns out to be Rocks clone, it would just be, like, so disappointing. It'd be like, man. So, Roger became a legend for defeating for defeating another version of Captain Kidd. Wow. What a badass. It would just destroy Roger's legend completely. It's like, Kid 1.0, that was your arch nemesis? God damn. The old era isn't exactly what people talk it up to be. It's kind of like, maybe it would just feel like the way that NBA players talk about the 90s and stuff. Like, man, the players from the 90s were just the best players ever. And you're looking, it's like, yeah, Jordan was playing against, like, Clyde Drexler. I don't know if this is that big of a deal. Captain Longlegs says, if Kuma dies, then does the memory bubble go away? Oh, I hope not. I want to get the full story out of this, but that's an interesting point. Attilio says, thank you, Morj, and everyone else for the advice. I'll let you know if things work once I get my answer. Manifest this shit, thank you. Yeah, actually, please. It provides an entertaining story for the rest of us. Again, don't worry because there's no stakes. Yeah, there's just no stakes for you here. It's just a girl in your class. Don't worry about it. And lucky thing is, if you go to college, you probably have other classes, right? So you've got other options, right? Matt McGrath says, "Don't you dare diss Jordan." Yeah, let me just say this real quick. LeBron is my favorite player of all time. I like he's, you know the phrase like my goat. LeBron is my goat, like my goat. But I still think that Jordan was. I think Jordan had the greater. I think Jordan is the greatest player of all time. At the end of the day, I think LeBron's better in that. I think if you took LeBron right, like prime LeBron, I think is just the most complete basketball player ever. But at the end of the day, I think Jordan is what he accomplished over time was just more impressive, right? But if you're arguing in LeBron's favor, I'm there for it. Like I prefer LeBron. Like he's my favorite. I consider him the second greatest player of all time. I wouldn't mind if people call him first. But at the end of the day, the passing Kareem up in points thing, in my opinion, that's like not. I don't know why. Like they made a huge deal. Like I just don't think that that's something that pushes him above Jordan. Like there's so many other arguments for LeBron over Jordan. It's just the passing him up in points thing. I think that was really overblown. I think that was something that was really overblown in the media and stuff. Because the points thing, that's like, yeah, it's a really big deal. It shows great level of scoring play over a long period of time. But to me, it's just, that's a longevity award. That's cool. But I don't know. It's also just like, is it that big of a deal when, like, before LeBron came along, the person who had the second most points was fucking Karl Malone? Like, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, you had, like, Dirk Nowitzki was top 5. Like, no offense to Dirk, but these aren't, like, Dirk, Karl Malone. These aren't, like, all-time, Mount Rushmore type players or anything like that. Like, imagine if Kareem didn't exist. Then the person in first place in points would be fucking Karl Malone. Is this that big of a deal? Like, I think there's so many other things LeBron has done that top this by far. I think I just don't care that much about these things like, well, who has the most number of rebounds ever or something like that, because I just don't think that type of thing isn't representative of like, in my opinion, like what a player really was at their. I think I just like comparing prime versus prime more, and I think once you get into things like, okay, well, if you stack up all their years, then who had the most points or the most assists or something like that, it just doesn't matter as much to me. The numbers just get so absurd at a certain point. It's like, maybe this guy played a year or two more, or this guy played a year or two less, or this guy didn't retire then, or something like that. Like, there's random things, or this guy was injured for a year. It's a cool accomplishment, but to me, it just doesn't. It's like LeBron's carried teams to the finals like 10 times. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, what he did in 2016. That's crazy. I think it's really cool that he's managed to be a really great scorer over such a long period of time. But I think that stuff is also represented in, how many All-NBAs, how many All-Star teams he's made, how often he's carried teams to the finals and stuff like that. Like, exactly how many points he's scored. That just doesn't seem. Like, I just, personally, the way I rate players, like, I never gave Kareem that much credit for this. I never thought that made Kareem in the argument for GOAT contention, because I'm like, again, like, fucking Karl Malone is second. Like, this doesn't mean that much, I don't think. Anyway, that's just me. I get why people value it so much, but it's just like, when I'm comparing players, I'm never thinking like, okay, Steph Curry versus Kevin Durant. Who do I think is better? Better look at who scored more points over time. Oh, KD scored 15K. Curry's only scored 13K. Guess KD's better. Like, that's just not a thing. Like, who fucking looks at that shit when comparing how good a player is? You know what I mean? Like, you get what I'm saying? I'm almost never finding myself trying to look up how many points a player has scored over time. I think this is just stuff that just comes up. I don't know. Shuki says, if Bonnie is a Big Mom clone, does that refuse her? I don't know what that means. Is that refuse her? Is that refuse her? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Can someone explain what that means? Does that refuse her? It shouldn't even make sense. Bonnie can't be a Big Mom clone. The Big Mom's... No, maybe... No, it just doesn't make sense. Matt Vincent says, do you think Caribou works for Morgan's? I don't think so. Also, Mr. Vincent, it says this is your first super chat, and I'm supposed to celebrate that. Thanks. Appreciate it. Anime Dimension, thank you very much. There is an organization who is trying to take over the world, who has the most influence, and series will mystery after mystery, but all are not related to the main story. There are some arcs where the main villains appear, which we can follow. Oh, that's actually really interesting. I won't lie, I didn't expect that out of Detective Conan. I thought it would just keep running and running. It's interesting. Maybe I'll give Detective Conan a try. Maybe. Because I like mysteries. Are the mysteries good? If the mysteries are good, I'll give it a try. AH24 says, I thought it was so interesting about how Nami was stomping on a captured Lucci and Kaku. Yeah, while Robin of all people was holding her back. It's sad the panel had to be filled with a buttload of Vegapunks. Yeah, I mean, that's part of what makes it funny, that it's just like an offhand thing that's happening in the background. I like the idea of writing, vibrant scenes where there's so many characters doing their own little thing and you can kind of look through and it's a tapestry of funny moments. I like that idea in general. It's just in the moment, right? Where I'm at with One Piece in general is kind of hoping for. I feel like we've had so many characters for so long, which is why just the sense that, we've got a bunch of shit going on and a bunch of characters crammed together again, that's just not a fun feeling for me right now. But in isolation, I find it to be a funny panel. You know what I mean? Rainman says fans would rather see you win a championship than set a scoring record. That's my thing. I'm like, yeah, if I could pass up LeBron winning another championship versus, like, getting more points than Kareem, I would take another championship every day. You know what? I'm not one of those people that's like, only championships matter. It's just that, I'm just talking about, yeah, it's just like different thing. Like LeBron's done other things besides win championships that I think matter a lot. It's just getting the most points ever. I think that's really cool to have on his resume, but it's not something that I'm ever thinking of when I'm trying to rank how great a player is personally. Also, they fucking stopped the game for it. I didn't expect that at all. They were just like, they're in the middle of an NBA game. It's like they didn't win a championship or anything like that. They didn't not. It's just like this isn't a. It's not in a game stopping. There's no reason to stop the game, but the Thunder are just like, well, guess we're just like not gonna play basketball for a while. Was it like already accepted that this is gonna happen? Like it was just assumed. Hey, if LeBron breaks this record, then fuck the basketball game. We're just gonna suck off LeBron for like 10 minutes. I'm just like, holy shit, they stopped the game for this? That's insane. I don't know. Like, what the hell? Are they gonna stop the game? Like, did they stop the game when Curry got the 3-point record and stuff? Like, why are you stopping the game for like a non-game related reason? You know what I mean? Did they stop the game for Steph too? No way. Why? This is... I mean, I guess that's what, that's the type of thing that draws attention to the NBA, so you gotta do stuff like that. It makes sense. It's like, at the end of the day, like, viewership for the NBA matters more than any individual game, so, like, drawing attention to a big event. I get it. It's just funny. It's even funnier than the Lakers lost, LMAO. Yeah, the saddest thing is that it's just... I've tuned into too many Lakers games at the end of the game this season where it's so close and then they just lose. And to me, for this, I didn't even bother once I saw the score slipping away. And I tuned back in and it's like, oh, they lost by 3. It's just another game where it's so doable. They could have won. They lost by 3. It's just, I assume LeBron was probably checked out a little bit after he won his, got his record. Mr. Crescent, thank you very much. After rewatching some arcs, it feels like Zoro and Sanji didn't struggle as much as I remembered with their fights. I remembered them being more one-sided underdog fights like Luffy's. I think, okay, if we backtrack real quick, right? So that's a good little observation you brought up. And I'm probably going to end the stream on this just because I do got to go. Yeah, I think that with Zoro and Sanji... Okay, let's talk Zoro first, right? With Zoro, I think that... Look, this is just the reality of it. Oda likes to keep Zoro's strength pretty ambiguous. I think a lot of points throughout the series. So especially early on in One Piece and pre-time skip, he would handicap Zoro a lot during fights. So you can see Caribou, Hachi, things like that. Like, it was just... That's just there's just always reasons, right? Or even against the Nyaban brothers. Maybe it was mainly in East Blue. So I shouldn't exaggerate like that, right? Let's say outside East Blue, right? Mr. 1 was the first fight that Zoro truly felt like an underdog, and I would argue that that's the first and only fight all the way up till King. That's why I think Mr. 1 and King are the two best fights for Zoro in the series. Outside of that, you had Zoro versus Ohm. That wasn't that hard for Zoro. Like, he had to apply a skill that he'd been working on because he couldn't really get through otherwise, but he didn't feel like an underdog. He wrapped it pretty... He was basically like, okay, I'm going to need to pull this off the pound cannon to be able to beat him. Did it. Cool. Zoro versus Ryuma, extremely evenly matched fight. It was meant to be extremely evenly matched, but it went by so quickly. Zoro never felt like an underdog. It was two evenly matched fighters, a very high-paced, high-octane fight. A really cool fight, honestly. A very well choreographed Zoro fight. It's a Zoro versus not Mr. 1. Zoro versus Ryuma is an underrated Zoro fight, in my opinion. Really cool fight. And then Zoro versus Kaku. It was a tricky fight for Zoro, and there were points where he was having difficulty, but it was like once he went all out with Ashura, he did just win, right? So I'd say Mr. 1 and King were the 2 points that he was an underdog. With Sanji almost never struggles. Sanji very rarely feels like an underdog during a fight. I would say that Queen was the first time that it really felt like Sanji's just outmatched over the course of the fight, and he needed a power-up, basically. Because if you look at Sanji versus Mr. 2, they were even. Sanji was just getting tricked by Mr. 2's transformations because he couldn't hit him. Karubi was because Sanji was stuck underwater. As soon as they got out of the water, Sanji kicked ass. Absalom was an absolute beatdown. Jabra, it was an even fight. Sanji started just having a bit of trouble at one point because he didn't have the physical force to break through Tekkai, like Jabra's Tekkai, and then he just used Yabble Jambe in one. So Queen was the first time I'd say Sanji was truly losing a fight straight up, like he was just plain outmatched, and then he had to get that power up to keep up. So yeah, I think Zoro and Sanji, they aren't treated as underdogs that much, which is why I think that I do think that lots of times when it feels like Luffy's far ahead of them, I think sometimes it's overblown because we can often see a couple chapters later and stuff like that. Like, I think it sometimes gets overblown because it's also just like Zoro and Sanji usually don't try as hard or aren't pushed as hard as Luffy is during his fight. So Luffy usually fights someone way stronger, but you have to look at context, right? So, I mean, for example, I think that if you look at what Zoro and Sanji were doing in Thriller Bark and even at Sabaody, they were made to look closer to Luffy than they did in Enies Lobby, right? I think most people felt like Luffy, once he got gears, was well ahead of them. But by the time you get to Sabaody, it felt like they're all... Like, Luffy's still clearly ahead, but it felt like they're still doing stuff that's very comparable to Luffy by that point, right? They just weren't pushed as hard as at Enies Lobby. Because Luffy had to go all out with his gears to beat Lucci. Zoro and Sanji, they fought weaker opponents, but they just used their power-ups like once, and then they beat their opponents right away. So, and it's also like lots of times people are like, I find it funny when people are like, Wano proves it, Oda's pushed Luffy ahead of Zoro and Sanji by a lot forever. It's just the way it is forever. This was the arc that he proved it. It's like, are people fucking stupid? Like, how often do you see this cycle? Because I remember coming out of both Enies Lobby and pre-time skip. I think once the post-time skip started, especially once Luffy had Gear 4th, people were like, yeah, with Gear 4th, Luffy is just way ahead of Zoro and Sanji, right? As it turns out, a lot of people would now argue that before Luffy got Advanced Conqueror's Haki, so like Luffy at the start of Wano and Zoro at the start of Wano, there wasn't that big of a gap, right? Because you can look at what Luffy was doing on the rooftop and what Zoro was doing on the rooftop, right? There wasn't that big of a gap. And similarly, I don't think there was that big of a gap between Zoro and Sanji. I think that had to be bridged more with Sanji's upgrade. But you get what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people feel that, especially when Zoro got Enma, he was probably somewhat close to, like, Luffy at the start of Act 1. Maybe even stronger or something like that, right? So, a lot of times people assume certain things, but then we kind of recalibrate. You have people who even feel like Zoro post-time skip, coming out of the New World 2 years training, is as strong as Luffy was coming out of 2 years training. So a lot of people's assumptions are like, well, this means Oda proved something forever. It's like, no, you kind of have to you have to wait and see characters do everything that they can before you can kind of make that decision, in my opinion. All right, last 2 questions, then I'm going to call it a day. Rodolfo says, do you think that Big Mom knew Stussy was a clone, since she should have known of Miss Stussy as a fellow Rocks pirate and have looked like her? That's actually a good point. That's a one of those like wave away One Piece things. You know what I mean? Like like Oda's not gonna address it probably. Shit. Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense, does it? Anime in Dimension says Detective Conan mysteries are good. Some of the mysteries related to Japanese culture, solving mysteries is Sherlock Holmes style. Okay. I will think about Detective Conan then, because it's a fun series that I always wanted to try. It's just that with Manga Morj now, there's a lot of series I'm supposed to try. So I have to like balance between like series like I want to try reading for fun, and then series I'm supposed to read for growing a YouTube channel. But anyway, all right, guys. I think we're gonna call it here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Sorry it's a shorter stream, but I do have to go do certain things. And I will talk to you all later. Thanks very much.